Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Cocktails and convo. And my first guest is an awesome person. He's an educational advocate who has about 27 years of experience in education. He's a lawyer for Dorancy Law Firm, as well as the president and CEO of Triad Consulting Strategies. So without further ado, I bring to you my first guest, Mr. Rubain Dorancy, Esquire. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on my show today. You're looking real sharp.
Thank you.
Looking real.
Thank you. So are you.
Well, thank you. I must admit, this is the first time I put on a full suit in like 4 months, right? You know, we've been in the house, social distancing, so I've been pretty fly from the chest up, but at the bottom, shorts, whatever. But I got the full suit on today, so I'm trying to. So I do want to say, as this is our first show, first episode, it's only right that we bring it in appropriately. Now, we know the name is Cocktails and Convo, but since this is the first episode, I had to step it up a notch, right? So today, instead of just a cocktail, we got to get this thing started with some Armand du Brignac.
Whoa.
You hear I pronounced that properly, right? Armand du Brignac. I had to let it flow a little bit. Of course, more popularly known as Ace of Spades.
I know that.
Are you ready to indulge with me?
Absolutely.
Because this is a. By the way, do you know why people toast?
I know why I toast.
Well, talk about it.
Celebrate, to acknowledge, to give well wishes, and to speak over the possibilities of this endeavor, this venture.
I love that. Celebrate, speak over the possibilities, and that's exactly what we're going to do today, because Cocktails and Convo is all about building up. Just to give a little history lesson, it's interesting. I've read some things where it said, back in the day, people would actually put spiced toast in wine because the seasonings would charcoal and temper the flavor, right? And that's where it got the name toast from. But then I was also reading that by clinking of the glasses during the toast, it completed this drinking experience. And allegedly, the clinking of the glasses tapped into all 5 senses.
Right.
Of course, and as you said, it was celebratory as well. But also, even back further in the medieval days, when they would often spike wine with poison, right? So in these places, if I was hosting a party, I would pour some of your wine into mine to drink to show that, it was nothing in it.
Right.
However, if you trusted me, you would clink my glass instead as, nah, you don't have to do that. I trust you. So as we kick off this first episode of Cocktails and Convo, let us toast to trust. Let us toast to humility. Let us toast to Black excellence. And let us toast to continuous growth as men. Thank you.
Cheers, toast.
Cheers. Armand du Brignac.
Ace of Spades.
Ace of Spades. So let's just jump right in. So much happening in our world right now. Where do we begin?
I think what's going on in terms of rewriting and reshaping the destiny of America, that's a strong place to start, because I think that actually influences everything else, the quality of education, the rights and expectations of our communities in terms of access to education for our young people, opportunities for business owners to thrive. So really, the whole George Floyd murder.
You were right there.
Because it's here, but it's been here for 400 years. It's been here if you think about everything that this country has written about in terms of the way they interact with people of color, especially Black people. I think George Floyd just brought it full out, publicly and explicitly in the most raw way. So it's almost appropriate to start with that.
And how many George Floyds are actually in the United States, right? Countless. We have so many situations that happen that may not be as popular, right? But luckily, due to cell phones, we get to see, well, not even luckily, but we get to see so much of this happening. So are we going to make a shift, though? Granted, we got the George Floyd situation. We have so much protesting going on, and there's this momentum, if you will. Is it going to make a difference?
I think it's already made a difference from the point of view of allowing people, white people especially, who doubted the sincerity, the authenticity, and the things that black people have been complaining about literally for decades. I think it brought them to be present to our suffering. I think it also allowed for them to recognize just the level of inhumanity in the way some black people have been treated at the hands of some police officers. You know, one of the things that we want to be mindful of is to recognize that the issue is the system. It's not individual people. You know, as much as Officer Chauvin, for example, the man who stared into the camera coldly for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, looking at us saying, "And what?" He is allowed by a system, a law enforcement system, a criminal justice system, to have the audacity to think, I can do this and get away with it. The same way with Rayshard Brooks. A basic stop, again, no one is lionizing him. No one is saying that what Rayshard Brooks did was right in terms of possibly driving under the influence.
Right.
But driving under the influence should never be a death sentence.
Absolutely not.
And when you consider all of the events that took place, you can't tell me that it's a logical conclusion that someone is running away from the police and they get shot twice. It's like Walter Scott, it's like Tamir Rice, it's like Michael Brown, it's like Trayvon Martin, it's like Philando Castile. There's so many instances of black lives just taken way before their time.
Every time you leave the house, it could be your last time, right? But so understanding that these unfortunate incidents are happening around our country, just so how you explained it, and we hear a lot of talk now about defunding police. Is that the answer?
I think that, and let me go back a second, Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor, because as a culture, as a society, I think we so easily forget that black women are also in risk and at risk of the same injustices that men of color have experienced. Now, you know, there's a saying, and I heard that from Dr. King, you know, a budget is a moral document. So when we say defund the police, it's not to say that there's not a place for law enforcement, because in a democracy, we believe in a rule of law. But the question is how you expend your dollars communicates your priorities.
Absolutely.
So when we say defund the police, what we're really saying is let's prioritize safety, let's prioritize educational opportunities, let's prioritize all of the things that can prevent folks from getting into a life of crime. So is there a place for the police? Absolutely. But there is a greater place for a social service net. There's a greater place for quality education. I was doing some math, and I've been joking around with people. I'm like, if you took $1 billion out of the New York City Police Department, let's say, every school could have a $500,000 per year beacon program. Just think about that. Imagine every school becoming a hub of opportunities from 2 o'clock to 10 p.m. every day, every single school. So what you've really created, you're reimagining a city that is going to foster a thriving economy and also a thriving environment where children are safe, where parents know where their children are, where adults in our communities can go to get GED or high school education test preparation or civics education, knowing how to vote and why to vote and for whom to vote. All of these things to me are interconnected. So it's not about defunding the police in revenge or in reaction as much as it is to reimagine a society that fosters safety and not occupation.
And that's the key word. You keep saying it. You said it several times, and I absolutely agree with what you're saying. That word reimagine, right? And when we think about reimagine, it's really taking our mental models of how we see the world, how we see certain systems, and throwing that away and doing something completely different. You know, when we think about the idea of police, the idea is to serve and protect. and to keep us safe. But if time after time after time after time we're seeing that that's not the case, then we need to reimagine what policing could really be like. And also, digging a little further, what does safety look like? Like, we think about safety, okay, we need police to keep us safe. Do we need police to keep us safe? Or is there something else that we can tap into, like those other?
You know, it's the same way when we talk about health, right? Mm-hmm. Like, health isn't not being sick. Health is a presence of being whole. So when you think about safety, safety isn't just not being exposed to violence. Safety is also about the presence of well-being. Absolutely. And by safety, I'm not just talking about someone not robbing me of my personal property. But if we're in a community and people are robbing us of our feeling of being a citizen, that's just as evil, that's just as wrong as if a person is robbing you of your livelihood or robbing you of your life.
Or robbing you of opportunity.
Robbing you of opportunity. So, for example, for me, when I think of safety, I think of being able to drive in whatever car that I can afford to buy without having to worry about sirens turning on behind me, stopping me, questioning me. Now, if I'm almost a 50-year-old black man, well-educated, hardworking, tax-paying, and have the means to purchase, let's say, an expensive convertible. If I choose to purchase it, I should be able to drive it without anyone stopping me, asking me, is this car legally mine?
You should, but you can't.
And that's where the lack of safety comes in, right? Now, a police officer can stop me and ask me to show my license, run my registration, if I'm driving dangerously, if I'm swerving, if I appear to be under the influence. But if I'm simply conducting my business legally, and this person takes it upon himself or herself to humiliate me, to ask me to justify my driving this car, that is taking away my dignity.
Leaving the house as a black man opens up the door to be humiliated by police.
Absolutely.
And I'm not just saying that as a blanket statement. I'm saying that just based on my experiences as a 45-year-old man. Like, every decade in my teens, in my 20s, in my 30s, in my 40s, I've been stopped by police. And I guarantee, like, I get it that they have a job to do, but why am I always looked at as the enemy? And just, I remember specifically when I was a principal, middle school principal, and I'm leaving school after a 12-hour day. 12-hour day, I'm going to praise and worship rehearsal. A long day of work, dealing with stress. I figure, I'll go to rehearsal, praise the Lord, get some of that stress out. As I'm walking down the street, two regular dress, street clothes men grab me, just snatch me up as I'm walking around the corner, and I feel like I'm getting robbed. Right. I don't even know they're cops at first. I feel like I'm getting robbed. They're going in my pockets. Where are you going? What are you doing? Then after a few seconds, I see the badges swinging. Of course, they got them turned backwards. I can't see names or anything, but they're telling me I look suspicious. Of course, my fight or flight kicks in. I'm uncomfortable. I'm afraid. I don't know if I'm about to die, get shot, or whatever. But in my mind, I'm thinking, I got a bachelor's degree. I got a master's degree. I got another master's degree. I'm working on a doctorate degree at that time. And still, as a principal of a community, a well-respected gentleman still having to go through the humiliation of looking suspicious based on the color of my skin. So I absolutely agree with what you're saying.
So it's interesting because, when you say go about doing their job, and we use these terms, protect and serve, and then tie that to Amy Cooper, who chooses to dramatize a false situation to weaponize the perception of the New York City Police Department of black men. So when we say do their job, the real question that we have to ask is in the heart of the very DNA of the NYPD in this case, what is their job? Now, if they believe their job is to control black and brown bodies, and they've been socialized as an institution to control black and brown bodies, and we see that that's essentially what Stop and Frisk was.
Absolutely.
It was all about control black and brown bodies. It was all about treat people who are doing the same things differently if they look differently. You know, when you think about what just happened for the last 3-4 months, we had social distancing policies in place. We had folks had to wear masks. We had you have to walk 6 feet apart. In communities of color, you saw tough enforcement.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
People being actually picked up, body slammed by police officers for not wearing a mask, with police officers sitting on their face.
And we're in other parts of town.
And let's call it, because cocktails and convo, this, and plus, you know, I'm a little lit over there, Jay, so let's keep it real. I know, you know, I have a low threshold. In white communities, it's not in other parts, it's in white communities. Let's call it out, because it is uncomfortable.
Let me hand you that mask.
Let me hand you that mask. You do know you should socially distance because of the policies. So same actions, different consequences. Why is that? How is that?
Which has been
and taking it back to where our initial passion is, education. Absolutely. How many schools have you served, whether as a teacher, a dean, an assistant principal, deputy superintendent, etc.? My work as a teacher, after school coordinator, deputy cluster leader, deputy executive director, we've had to deal with disproportionate treatment of children of color.
Absolutely.
You know, in so many schools, you would go into certain schools, black children have to turn in their cell phones. In white schools, children are allowed to use their cell phones in class, even whether it's to incorporate it in the lesson or simply to have it to listen to music during their lunchtime or during their recess. Same behavior, different treatment.
And hold that thought, because now we got to switch to a segment of the show called The People Want to Know.
The people want to know, the people want to know, the people want to know. Man, I got a question.
The People Want to Know is just a segment where we take questions from people all over and we do our best to try to answer them. So here we go. We got Michael from Queens. Michael from Queens wants to know, will Donald Trump be elected president again in 2020?
It's up to the people. You know, is it rapid fire, or can I like?
Go ahead, please.
You know, I got to tell you, it's up to the people. If Joe Biden, who's the nominee on the Democrat side, selects the wrong vice presidential running mate, and it makes people who right now are amped up feel disappointed or feel, because look, if you really go back and look at Joe Biden's track record,
shaky
is a compliment. And he's already not looking like too on point. yeah, I'm trying to be diplomatic. I know. No, all that is part of it, right? He's looking like how the table is feeling. I'm keeping it real with you, right?
Right.
So it's like, and in a world that is even more insecure, more tenuous, and in America after 2021, let's say, that's going to be more afraid, you're going to need to make sure that the president is solid and that his whole team is solid.
We keep hearing about vice president, female.
Well, it's going to have to be a woman. It's going to have to be a woman, and I believe it should be a woman.
You're the vice presidential candidate. Who are you selecting as your running mate?
You know, I mean, there are a lot of solid women. You know, I don't have any stake in the game, but look, we need a person who can become president day 101. Because I hate when they say day one, like, you know, Joe Biden isn't going to die the first day of president, you know. So, yeah. So, no, I just hate when people say that. Yeah. But we do need a person who whom Joe Biden will place the confidence in the same way President Barack Obama had that relationship with him when he was vice president. So I don't have any names. I mean, some people say, well, you need a person who's been an executive, like a mayor or a governor. Some other people say folks like Kamala Harris or like a congresswoman. Especially one of the big conversations around the country right now is police reform. So the sister who's in Florida, I think her name is Val Demings, she's a congresswoman. She was one of the impeachment managers. She seems solid.
Answer Michael's question. Will he be the president again?
It's up to the people. You know, if we say...
Will he be the president, yes or no?
He is not going to be the president if America is really serious about racial reconciliation, about reform, and about rewriting. Not rewriting, because I don't think we should rewrite history. I think we should correct history. Absolutely. You know, that's why I'm not big on all of these people getting rid of some of these statues. Some of those statues I don't understand why we're getting rid of, but you know, that's for another conversation.
A whole other conversation.
That's a whole other conversation.
Some of it is absolutely necessary, though. Right. I would agree. Now, you heard it, Michael. You heard it.
Trump is going home. Trump is going home, but you got to do your part.
All right, the people want to know. Jason from Brooklyn has 3 words.
Yes.
Biggie or Jay-Z?
Biggie or Jay-Z, who's better?
Biggie or Jay-Z, who you got?
Jay-Z. Let me just tell you why. I know a lot of people, oh man, you're gonna deport me from Brooklyn. You know, I rep Brooklyn. Here's the thing. I think Jay-Z respects Biggie. I think Jay-Z, though, if you look at the body of his work, just the level of Jay-Z, I think a harder debate for me is Jay-Z versus Tupac. Just from the point of view of their level of complexity, their level of being able to rap about a range of things. Like, I'm surprised Jay-Z hasn't really come out explicitly with what's going on now. I know his wife Beyonce dropped some jewels recently, some music. But in terms of, I can't see what Biggie Smalls would have been saying in the moments that we're in. Like, I just think like, when I listen to old Biggie joints, dope stuff. As fly as we are, I don't really want to hear about Versace and Gucci and all that. Like where we are right now as a society, it shows a level of superficiality. Absolutely. And I think that where rap started and why rap started, hip hop started, it was really about speaking truth to power and about challenging the status quo, challenging the system. So I just think that lyrics-wise and in terms of substance, to me, is Jay-Z. And that's no disrespect to Biggie Smalls.
Oh, listen, I'm a huge Biggie fan. Right. Like, I remember unwrapping the package on the CD of Ready to Die. Like, right. I remember me and my boy sitting in the parking lot. Like, we opened it up and just sat and bobbed out to it. And boom, 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 right. boom, 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 boom. Back in the day, like, right. that's how it started. But Jay-Z, to me, like, and as far as I'm concerned, there's no debate. He's the GOAT. He is the GOAT. 96, 97, 98, 99, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003. Took his little break like MJ, who's also the GOAT, and then dropped more heat. And the fact that he's now 50 years old and is still so relevant and can still break down a 16 in a way that is just like art. It's really like art, and to me, it's just no question. It's definitely Jay-Z.
So I got that one right.
So Jason from Brooklyn, we both going with Jay-Z. Right. Oh. Now let's take it up top to the BX. Michelle from the Bronx wants to know if her kids will be going back to school in the fall. What do you think?
Yes. So I'm not in the system, and real talk, I'm not even of the system. Because I'm standing inside looking at the system like, I don't know y'all. I don't know y'all.
That's deep. Y'all meaning the system?
I'm meaning the promise of what my parents are Haitian immigrants. And I look at farm, right? My boule, right? And I look at what education has done for me and my 5 brothers and sisters. You know, Brownsville born, Crown Heights raised. And sometimes I worry about the opportunities that education brought to me and my siblings and even my parents. I don't know if it's going to be the same for so many children who depend on school. Here's my thing, Michelle from the Bronx. I was talking to somebody recently. I'm like, if I were the chancellor, I would tell every school, okay, what's your technology like? Every kid could be in school today, even if half of them are home and half of them are in school, still being live streamed in the present. Like this idea of creating uncertainty for parents when we're supposed to be engaging and empowering parents is troubling to me. Absolutely. The fact that, if I'm a parent with 4 children, 2 of whom are in elementary, 1 middle, 1 high school, and the schools aren't coordinating even within a district to figure out the schedule, then what am I telling my boss if I have to go to work? If the whole idea of why there was hesitation to close schools to begin with was to make sure that schools were a space for children to get food, a place where parents needed to make sure that their children were being supervised, we're right back to square one.
So as we're speaking about education, and then we're also thinking about the pandemic that we're still experiencing, the pandemic of COVID, the pandemic of racial inequity. You're a father.
Absolutely.
So as a father, what do you hope that your kids take away from this time? They're going to get past it. They're going to remember this time. Like, what do you hope that they take away from this moment of unrest?
That they matter. For me, I think the most significant thing, and it goes back to this idea of where we started with defunding the police, where let's flip it to reimagining law enforcement, right? I would also say this is an opportunity to reimagine education. Like how to make education relevant and significant and impactful for young people to recreate America and recreate the world. So what I want for my children is for them to be able to recognize the connection between history and the present day technology and the new future that they want to imagine. So I'll give you a quick story. I remember speaking to one of my daughters about her frustration and her feeling that she was losing trust in the NYPD, and she's the highest ranking person in the Explorers, which is like the youth program, the Explorers program. And so many of her Explorers team, they wanted to quit, especially after the protests and how the NYPD were reacting to the protesters and conflating the protesters, the looters, and the rioters, and then the killing of George Floyd. And I remember saying to her that it's always been young people that shaped history. Like if you really think about it, Dr. King was only 26 when he led the Montgomery bus boycott. He died at 39. And if you and again, I'm not preaching religion, but let's just talk about history books. Jesus Christ was 33 when he died, right? He was like stepping to people at 12 years old in the temple, right? Again, I'm not preaching. I'm just saying just from a book point of view, like a history point of view. It's always been young people that have been able to project a different future, a better possibility of what the world could be. So for me, I want my children to recognize their power. And I always reflect on the way my parents raised me and the power of identity. Like being almost 50 means that I was born in the early 1970s, and I was developing my identity 10, 11 years old. Ronald Reagan was the president. Mm-hmm. What was going on in America with Haitian people? We had HIV, we brought HIV. We were part of the 4-H club. We were boat people. We were the poorest people in the Western Hemisphere. That's what the world was telling Haitian kids. And
that's
Haitian
not
people.
Your kid's narrative.
That was not even my narrative. The way my parents shaped my sense of who I am as a Haitian American, we were the first free free nation in the West. We were free even before America was free, if you consider the fact that America still had enslaved people of African ancestry all the way until 1865. One. Two, there was no Louisiana Purchase. Get it right. It was a Louisiana disposal. Napoleon got rid of the Louisiana territory after he lost Haiti. So Haiti is part of the reason America doubled in size. But if you take the point of view of Haiti is garbage and America is everything, you think Thomas Jefferson was a brilliant negotiator. Remember when we were in school, it was Thomas Jefferson negotiated the purchase of the Louisiana territory for $10 to $15 million. He is a brilliant, he outwitted Napoleon Bonaparte. No. If you take a step back and look at the bigger story, you understand Napoleon said, Dag, I'm not going to be able to expand the French Empire westward because I lost Hispaniola, I lost Haiti. So let me just get rid of it.
So you're going into the whole history lesson now. Our show's only an hour.
Right.
But point being that in spite of what history tells us about who we are, right? Your kids are not going to...
Let me put it like this, and I'm going to respectfully borrow something from you. When my parents raised me in the way that they taught me and shaped my identity and the way I teach my children, and teach other people's children, is education saves lives. It's really about when you have access to real education and you really understand the real story from every perspective, you really understand that as young people, especially people of color, you matter. You absolutely matter, and that you have a place in the world.
I salute you. I respect you. And on that note, we can end with education saves lives.
God bless you.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Cocktails and convo.